In 1964, a track coach and his former student started selling shoes out of the trunk of a car at track meets across the Pacific Northwest. Their total combined investment was $1,200. They had no storefront, no marketing budget, no brand identity, and no guarantee that anyone would buy a single pair. Today, that company is worth over $90 billion. Its logo is one of the most recognized symbols on Earth, more recognizable in some studies than the Christian cross. It has signed deals with the greatest athletes in every major sport. It has shaped how billions of people dress, move, and think about themselves. And it almost didn't exist at all. This is the entire history of Nike. Nike is not just a shoe company. It hasn't been for a long time. It is one of the most powerful cultural forces on the planet. A brand that doesn't just sell products, but sells identity, aspiration, and the idea that every single person alive is capable of something extraordinary. Its logo, one of the most reproduced symbols in human history, was designed by a graphic design student for $35. Its most famous slogan was written in a matter of minutes, and its rise from a car trunk to a $90 billion empire is built on a series of decisions that were, at the time, either visionary or completely insane, and sometimes both at once. To understand Nike, you have to understand the two men who built it from nothing. And you have to understand that neither of them ever really intended to build what they built. Act 1. The trunk of a car. Phil Knight grew up in Portland, Oregon, and ran middle-distance track at the University of Oregon under Bill Bowerman, a coach known less for tradition and more for obsession. Bowerman deconstructed shoes, stitched his own designs, and believed performance could be engineered. Knight wasn't extraordinary as an athlete, but he saw opportunity differently. At Stanford Business School, he proposed that Japanese running shoes could disrupt German brands like Adidas by offering high quality at lower prices. The idea drew little attention, so he pursued it himself. In 1962, Knight travelled to Japan and entered the offices of Onitsuka Tiger, claiming to represent a US distributor called Blue Ribbon Sports, a company that didn't yet exist. The pitch worked. Back home, he sent samples to Bowerman, who responded not with feedback, but with a proposal to join him. Each invested $500. The company began with $1,000 and a car trunk full of shoes, selling directly to runners at track meets, folding tables, cash transactions, and instinct. It was unpolished, but effective. In its first year, they generated $8,000. By 1965, Knight hired Jeff Johnson, a runner who would help shape the brand's early identity. By 1969, revenue had reached $300,000. But the growth concealed a critical weakness. They didn't manufacture anything. Every product depended entirely on Onitsuka. The business wasn't built on control, it was built on trust. And trust in business is never guaranteed. Because in 1971, the relationship with Onitsuka Tiger collapsed and nearly took everything with it. The Japanese company watching Blue Ribbon Sports grow decided they wanted a piece of it. They made an offer to acquire the company outright. Knight refused. In response, Onitsuka threatened to terminate the supply agreement entirely, cutting Blue Ribbon Sports off from the only product it sold. Knight had weeks to find a new manufacturer, build a new brand, and prevent his company from simply ceasing to exist. What happened in those weeks would change not just his life, but the entire global footwear industry. Act 2. The birth of a brand. With its partnership collapsing, Phil Knight moved fast to secure new manufacturing in Japan, but distribution alone wasn't enough. Blue Ribbon Sports needed an identity, a name that meant something. The answer came from Jeff Johnson, the company's first employee, who understood runners better than anyone. The night before a final decision, he had a dream: Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. Knight hesitated, leaning toward Dimension 6. But time was up. They chose Nike. Then came the symbol. A design student named Carolyn Davidson was asked to create a logo that suggested motion. She presented several ideas. Knight settled reluctantly on a simple curved mark, the swoosh. "I don't love it," he said, "but it'll grow on me." He paid her $35. Years later, after Nike became a global force, Knight brought Davidson back, gifting her a diamond Swoosh ring and company stock worth far more than her original fee. A $35 design had become one of the most valuable symbols in the world. At the same time, Bill Bowerman was solving a different problem: performance. Frustrated with existing running shoes, he searched for better traction and cushioning. In 1971, in his own kitchen, inspiration struck. Looking at a waffle iron, he poured in liquid rubber, creating a sole with a grid pattern that improved grip and shock absorption. It worked. The waffle sole became Nike's first true innovation, not marketing, but engineering. A product born not in a lab, but in a home kitchen. Together, a name, a symbol, and a sole didn't just create a company, they created a foundation. Act 3, the Jordan Effect. Through the late 1970s, Nike surged alongside America's running boom, reaching $269 million in revenue and going public by 1980. Then, almost overnight, momentum collapsed. The boom faded, and Reebok seized the aerobics movement, dominating a market Nike had overlooked, especially women. By 1984, Reebok had overtaken Nike in the US, and inside the company, uncertainty set in. The response came from an unlikely place: a 21-year-old rookie named Michael Jordan. Drafted by the Chicago Bulls, he wasn't yet a global icon. But Nike saw something others didn't, not just talent but magnetism. They offered him a deal unlike anything in sports at the time: $500,000 per year, royalties, and his own signature line. Jordan hesitated. He preferred Adidas. It was his mother, Dolores Jordan, who insisted he at least listen. He flew to Oregon. What he saw changed everything. Nike didn't pitch a contract. They pitched a vision. A brand built around him. A partnership he signed. In 1985, the Air Jordan 1 launched, black and red, in violation of NBA uniform rules. The NBA banned the shoe, issuing fines every time Jordan wore it. Nike paid them and turned the ban into marketing. The NBA won't let you wear these shoes. The result was unprecedented. The Air Jordan 1 generated $126 million in its first year, far beyond its $3 million projection. It didn't just sell, it ignited culture. Sneakers became identity, status, obsession. Every modern endorsement deal traces back to that moment, 1984, Oregon, when Nike bet everything on belief. Act 4, Nike's defining message. By the late 1980s, Nike had reclaimed its dominance, pushing past Reebok and expanding into new sports and global markets. But scale wasn't enough. The brand needed a unifying idea. In 1988, Portland-based agency Woiden + Kennedy introduced one. Co-founder Dan Whedon crafted a line inspired, in part, by the final words of Gary Gilmore, "Let's do it." He refined it into 3 words: just do it. No explanation, no product, no celebrity. Just belief. The campaign launched with an 80-year-old man running across the Golden Gate Bridge, a deliberate rejection of elite-only messaging. It wasn't about champions. It was about hesitation. The idea that the only barrier between who you are and who you could be is action. Just do it became one of the most powerful slogans in advertising history. Studied, imitated, but never replicated. 3 decades later, Nike tested that philosophy. In 2018, Colin Kaepernick, sidelined after kneeling during the national anthem, became the face of the campaign's 30th anniversary. The message read, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." The backlash was immediate. Boycotts spread. Shoes burned. Nike's stock dropped within days. But the calculation was deliberate. Sales surged. Brand loyalty among younger audiences intensified. In a divided market, Nike chose conviction over neutrality and won. The Kaepernick campaign is now studied as a defining moment in modern marketing, proof that a brand, when it stands for something real, doesn't need to appeal to everyone, only to those who believe. Act 5. The Global Empire. Today, Nike is no longer a company in any traditional sense. It is an infrastructure. It controls roughly 40% of the global athletic footwear market. a dominance so vast that regulators have repeatedly examined its position. With annual revenue exceeding $50 billion, Nike employs over 79,000 people directly, while supporting hundreds of thousands more through its global supply chain. The swoosh has become a universal symbol, appearing on national team uniforms across continents and on the feet of the most watched athletes on earth. Within this empire, the Jordan brand operates almost as a company of its own, generating over $5 billion annually decades after the original Air Jordan release. Michael Jordan, long retired, now earns more from Nike each year than he did during his entire playing career, while LeBron James secured a lifetime endorsement deal reportedly worth over $1 billion, transforming an athlete into a permanent corporate asset. Behind this global dominance were two men, Bill Bowerman, the obsessive innovator who experimented with shoe design using a waffle iron, and Phil Knight, the entrepreneur who turned uncertainty into momentum. Knight stepped down as chairman in 2016, now worth tens of billions, leaving behind more than a brand. Because Nike did not begin as a giant. It began with $1,200, a car full of imported running shoes, and no clear path forward. No guarantees, no certainty, only persistence, risk, and the decision to keep going. The story of Nike is, on one level, a straightforward American business success story. Brilliant founders, perfect timing, transformative partnerships, smart marketing. But underneath that is something more interesting. Nike succeeded because it understood something most companies never figure out. That people don't buy products, they buy identities. They buy the version of themselves that they want to become. When someone laces up a pair of Air Jordans or pulls on a Nike running top before a 6am run in the dark, they are not just buying rubber and fabric. They are buying into an idea about who they are and what they are capable of. That idea, distilled into 3 words in 1988, is still the most concise summary of what Nike has always been selling. Just do it.